What's up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. In this video, we are going to be breaking down Tyler Boyd, wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, giving you guys what you can expect from him in 2020. But before we get started, if you're looking for more videos like this for all the fantasy relevant players, hit that like and subscribe button for me. We'll be posting all the fantasy relevant players, giving you guys a in-depth analysis of what to expect as we get closer to the 2020 season. And we also have a full list of rankings on our website at fantasyaddictionnetwork.com, so make sure you check that out. But without further ado, let's look at Tyler Boyd. Now, Tyler Boyd had a very respectable season last year, and when you consider the realm of what you want for a wide receiver, pretty much everything kind of went his way last year. So AJ Green injured in the beginning of the year, before the season even starts, doesn't even play a down in the regular season. John Ross comes out on fire, and after 2 weeks, has a broken collarbone. He's out for the majority of the year. And Tyler Boyd is pretty much the only pass catcher with any prowess or name at all in Cincinnati. He gets all the workload to himself. The Bengals are constantly playing from behind, meaning that they're having to throw the ball at a tremendous rate. So Tyler Boyd's getting peppered with targets. And in terms of production, he had a modest year. Pretty respectable when you consider where he's being drafted. Ended up returning value for people. I think it definitely could have been a more efficient year, but it still ended up turning out all right. 90 receptions, over 1,000 yards. That's 2 seasons in a row now that he's finished with over 1,000 receiving yards, and ended up with 5 total touchdowns. That put him at 18th at the position with 222 fantasy points and 13.9 fantasy points per game. So wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. And when we look at his actual game log, you can see why people are a little bit less enthralled at what Tyler Boyd was giving you. Had multiple weeks where, especially towards the start of the season, where you weren't really happy, surrounded by some weeks where he completely exploded. So very inconsistent in how he actually got these points, especially you look at like week 11 when he played the Raiders and he only had 1 reception for 0 yards. Like, okay, how does that happen? And you turn that around with a 9 and a 10 target week where you have 16 and 19 fantasy points. Like, that was what was frustrating about owning Tyler Boyd last year, is you never really knew what you were going to get when you put him out there, and probably going to be able to expect similar output going into 2020, especially if AJ Green can remain healthy. So when we talk in terms of like a sexy fantasy pick, Tyler Boyd ain't it. He does give you a decent floor. I think he's a value where he's going right now because he's getting completely overlooked. A receiver that scored 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard receiving years. I mean, it's not like there's any guarantee that AJ Green is going to be able to play a full season. John Ross has been a disappointment for pretty much his entire career, with the exception of a couple games last year. So Tyler Boyd could be the number 1 receiver on a team that's improving their quarterback with Joe Burrow by leaps and bounds, is what is expected over Andy Dalton, and Tyler Boyd could be the number 1 receiver on that team. But yet no one's excited to draft him. So let's give both the pros and cons to why he might have a better year this year and why he might not. So Joe Burrow, with considering how he used Justin Jefferson at LSU, there's slot receiver there, he completed over 100 passes to the slot receiver, most of those being Justin Jefferson in 2019. So Joe Burrow likes to throw to the slot receiver. That is definitely something to note. That was about 25% of his passes were going to the slot. Last year, again, speaking to how this whole situation worked out, Boyd had a 24.9% target share, which was 13th in the NFL, and he was really good at creating yards after the catch with 363. He didn't have many deep targets, only 13. That's one of the more sticky stats in terms of projecting future fantasy value. And again, if AJ Green is there, you might expect that target share to go down a little bit. Then we look at some of the efficiency metrics. Catch rate, he was only 61.2%, which was number 62 in the NFL. That's not good. And then his true catch rate, where you take out the uncatchable passes, 79.6%. That was 65th. 10 drops, which was 3rd in the NFL. Again, could have had a much better year had he been able to be a little bit more consistent. I don't really know exactly what to expect from Joe Burrow this season. We're doing our best to project what we're expecting from him, but overall we're expecting the total number of passes to go down. So the total number of passes goes down. They add in T. Higgins. They get AJ Green back, assuming AJ Green is healthy. It's not really hard to imagine why Tyler Boyd would have a bit of a regression in terms of his overall production. Right now, we have him dropping to 77 receptions, 908 receiving yards, and 5 total touchdowns, giving you a respectable 196 fantasy points. Again, he carries a little bit of upside if AJ Green ends up going down, but even last year we saw a perfect storm and he only scored 220 fantasy points. So what is his upside really? If everything goes back to the way it was last year, that would probably be the best for him because now he has Joe Burrow throwing him the ball. If Joe Mixon is having a good year on the ground, might create a little bit more room for Tyler Boyd, but it'd probably bring his total targets down. So last year he had a ton of targets. He was the only name in town, and he wasn't able to do much with it. So I understand why there's not a lot of people taking him where he's at. I feel like his upside is really low, and as we've talked about and will continue to talk about, upside is one of the most important, actually the most important thing, especially when you're drafting in these later rounds. So personally, even though I expect him to have a modest fantasy year, I'm probably not taking Tyler Boyd. There's guys around him like Darius Slayton that have a tremendous upside. And even if Tyler Boyd ends up having a better year, I would rather take the chance on a guy that can massively outproduce where he's getting drafted than taking a guy which we pretty much know he's going to give you. Even if he gets another 1,000-yard season, if he gets it in the method and the way that he did last year, you're never really going to be happy with what he gave you because if he only performs 5 weeks out of 16, that's not something you can predict. That's not something that you're excited about. So a guy that we'll keep an eye on for DFS, but personally, I'm not targeting him unless something changes massively between now and September. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Really love doing these, and I hope that you guys are getting something out of this. We're going to continue to be breaking down all of the fantasy relevant players, so hit that like and subscribe button for more content like this, and we will see you in the next video.